StoryTube by Joshua Gen 2005, presents yet another Bible study on Spirit of Madness. The Spirit of Madness. This is information to a non-Christian while it is a must-pray situation for the born-again Christian. Before proceeding, I'd like to give you a few definitions and facts about God and Satan. 1. God comes from the everlasting or infinity, while Satan is a created being by God Almighty Himself. 2. God is omnipresent and Satan can stay in one place at a time. 3. God knows our hearts but Satan does not read our hearts and minds. 4. God is the creator of all things but Satan is pretending to show him as a creator, or he will create the illusion for someone to think that he is a creator. When will a man be demonized by the spirit of madness? Who will get afflicted? How this will happen? We are going to find answers to all these. Who will get afflicted? When a man continues to say that he is crazy, which gives access to demonic forces to act upon. When we use the term seriously with confession, the spirit of madness will attack you and take hold of you. The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7 and verse 25. I applied mine heart to know, and to search, and to seek out wisdom, and the reason of things, and to know the wickedness of folly, even of foolishness and madness. This verse by King Solomon says that he put his mind and investigated the term madness to know the truth. Today in the 21st century we should be doing the same as being Christians to know what is taking place in this world, to understand how the spirit of madness works. Some of you might agree with me, but some of you also might disagree with me. However, after watching this video, you will be aware that such a thing is mentioned somewhere through a video and it is available on YouTube. By compiling this study, I do not intend to attack someone or a group of people personally. I am not interested in politics but very much interested to know what is happening to this world and well-being of all citizens of this world, as all of us deserve a better life until Christ returns. Also by this study, I expect the born-again church will expedite and focus their prayers towards this topic specifically, so that the bondage of the spirit of madness is broken by God in the heavenly courts, so the true sense of the living will still have a chance. The Bible gives us insight into how the men and women would be during the end of the present age called the last days. Though the spirit of madness was at work from the times of beginning, it has become viral as we are fast approaching the end times. The Bible records many characteristics of man during the end times. All Bible quotations are from the King James Bible of 1611, the Authorized Version. The book of 2 Timothy, chapter 3 and from verse 2. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. 3. Without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. 4. Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. 5. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. 6. For of this sort are they which creep into houses, and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with divers lusts. 7. Ever learning, and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. 8. Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth, men of corrupt minds, reprobate concerning the faith. 9. But they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall be manifest unto all men, as theirs also was. Do we find them today? They have multiplied since biblical times. Also we find many situations like this in most of the countries in the world today. We all know that there are 7 sins that will surely bring death to us, and they are called the 7 deadly sins. 1. Pride. 2. Envy. 3. Anger. 4. Lust. 5. Gluttony. 6. Sloth. 7. Greed. All these sins come with a package, and that is the spirit of madness. If you go through any bad situation in this world, you will find one or more of these deadly sins are at work. Let's look at some of the examples from the Bible to understand the spirit of madness. Example 01. King Saul was God-appointed king. When Philistines were just about to conquer Israel, David fights Goliath and overcome him. What were the conditions of the fight? 1 Samuel 17 and verse 4. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath, of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. 5. And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. 6 And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. 7 And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. 8 And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. 9 If he be able to fight with me, and to kill me, then will we be your servants, but if I prevail against him, and kill him, then shall ye be our servants, and serve us. 10 And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day, give me a man, that we may fight together. This is a very familiar story in the Bible, which David defeating Goliath. Saul was the king of Israel and he was God appointed, but the country was on the verge of surrendering to the Philistines because they had Nephilim soldiers in their camp. King Saul was already afflicted by the spirit of madness due to fear of losing his kingdom. David as a shepherd boy came to the rescue and defeated Goliath with a little pebble, and the problem of losing the battle is solved. But we see later, Saul looking to kill David. Why? The sin involved here is envy and pride. Saul had a mindset to imagine that David will kill him and become the king. The same way, today the people who worked hard to bring a man to be president or leader will face this same fear of getting axed off by that same leader, because that leader knows the same tactics could be used to bring another to power by the same people. Now, what happened after that is history. 1 Samuel 19 and verse 1 And Saul spake to Jonathan his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David. This is the spirit of madness at work. The cutting off of the person is most important. Why? Pride and envy. Saul got goosebumps when he saw David, thinking that David could take over the kingdom from him by force. Finally, he falls into the trap of consulting dead spirits, and his end came as he was afflicted by the spirit of madness. On the other hand, when David became king, he was also tempted by this same spirit to think that he could do anything and get away when it came to the incident with Bathsheba. The only time he deviated from God's commands is this, and he repented and overcame that situation as he understood perfectly that he should get out before the spirit of madness gets into him. I still believe a king should have wise but not knowledgeable people around him. But today's problem is, they don't know that wisdom only comes from God. David was a shepherd boy and did not have knowledge but the wisdom of God. He rules Israel so justly that God said David's kingdom will be there forever. What is this kingdom which will last forever? It is the kingdom of the wise and just. I am glad that I am a part of it. Even today we find people who see and think differently than others, especially seeing things the biblical way. When the calamity of misbehaved practices are identified, we need people who will analyze those situations the biblical way to understand them and to overcome them. Example 2. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. What happened to them? There was a man by the name of Naboth, and he had a beautiful vineyard next to King Ahab's palace which brought quality wine. King Ahab offers Naboth a different piece of land in exchange to the vineyard of Naboth, and Naboth refuses as it came to him through his family line. King Ahab was grieved and went to his bed and laid down himself, thinking what he should do next. Then his queen came to rescue of the situation, and this is what happened. Jezebel asks Ahab why his spirit is disturbed. You know, when you have Jesus in you, you have a spirit of peace, and that spirit does not get disturbed. When you have the spirit of madness, you are sure to get your spirit disturbed. Queen Jezebel knew that by hook or by crook she should get the vineyard for her husband, so she conspired and killed Naboth and gave the vineyard to Ahab. But God knew what happened and sent his prophet to visit King Ahab and Jezebel. 1 Kings, chapter 21 and from verse 17. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, 18. Arise, go down to meet Ahab king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he is gone down to possess it. 19. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed, and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. 20. And Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. 21. Behold, I will bring evil upon thee, and will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. 22. And will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. 23. And of Jezebel also spake the Lord, saying, The dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. 24. Him that dieth of Ahab in the city the dogs shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. 25. But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. 26. And he did very abominably in following idols, according to all things as did the Amorites, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. 27. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard those words, that he rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his flesh, and fasted, and lay in sackcloth, and went softly. 28. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, 29. Seest thou how Ahab humbleth himself before me? Because he humbleth himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days will I bring the evil upon his house. When we examine this story we see pride, envy, greed, gluttony at work in getting the vineyard of Naboth. The result was Jezebel conspired and killed Naboth and gave the land to Ahab. During the Old Testament times, God had his prophets and brought judgments through the mouths of prophets to the kings and queens of the time. But today, as we are living in the times of grace, God let these take place, and he does not bring justice at once, but they are kept for God to judge at the right appointed times according to the Bible, as Jesus on his second coming will wipe away injustice along with people who are involved in them and practice them before the millennial kingdom begins. Example 3. King Nebuchadnezzar. When King Nabopolassar died, King Nebuchadnezzar took over the kingdom of Babylon, and he had the ability to identify the true advisors he had by his famous dream episode. Still he had pride, and he became crazy. He thought he is God and made a statue of him so that the whole of Babylon will worship the statue. The Book of Daniel chapter 3 and from verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits, he set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. 2. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. 3. Then the princes, the governors, and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. 4. Then an herald cried aloud, To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages. 5. That at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. Do you see how pride is at work? But there was one exception. King Nebuchadnezzar had Daniel the true prophet of God Almighty in his court. He had wisdom. He had the revelation of God in him, and when pride brought King Nebuchadnezzar to be an ox, Daniel was there to attend to him until that time passed and King Nebuchadnezzar came into his real senses. The Book of Daniel chapter 4 and from verse 28. All this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. 29. At the end of 12 months he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. 30. The king spake, and said, Is not this great Babylon, that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power, and for the honor of my majesty? 31. While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. 32. And they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. 33. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. 34. And at the end of the days I Nebuchadnezzar lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. 35. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest thou? 36. At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom, mine honor and brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. 37. Now I Nebuchadnezzar praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. Who looked after the king during this time? Daniel. Not only did he look after him but prayed daily with his 3 friends, breaking the power of the spirit of madness from this man. Daniel could have taken over the kingdom of Babylon, but he was wise not to do it. Why this doesn't happen to the kings on earth today? Because it is the time of grace. This period of time will end with the rapture of the church. Example 4. King Herod. When Magi came to see Jesus, they brought the death warrant for Jesus. King Herod did not like opponents, so he killed anyone who opposed or thought to be opposing his kingship. He had a court full of advisors of knowledge but no wisdom. Just to take away Jesus, he killed hundreds of children with the approval of his court. He killed his wife on a false accusation. He killed all his sons thinking that they will take over the kingdom from him by force. Here also we find the spirit of madness at work. Example 5. Emperor Nero. To my understanding, all emperors were afflicted with the spirit of madness. Idi Amin, Gaddafi, Adolf Hitler, Mao Zedong, Stalin, Lenin, most of the African country leaders up to this day, Saudi Prince, Saddam Hussein and many more are afflicted with the spirit of madness to this date, and it gets intensified by the day. Book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 28. The Lord shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. This is a curse that will come upon people who commit the 7 deadly sins. What happens when you are afflicted with the spirit of madness? The book of Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 13. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is mischievous madness. When they speak they will make foolish statements. The people who are not afflicted with this spirit will understand this plight at once. What did the leaders who were afflicted with the spirit of madness think about Jesus? The Gospel of Luke, chapter 6 and from verse 6. And it came to pass also on another Sabbath, that he entered into the synagogue and taught, and there was a man whose right hand was withered. 7. And the scribes and Pharisees watched him, whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an accusation against him. 8. But he knew their thoughts, and said to the man which had the withered hand, Rise up, and stand forth in the midst. And he arose and stood forth. 9. Then said Jesus unto them, I will ask you one thing, is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good, or to do evil? To save life, or to destroy it? 10. And looking round about upon them all, he said unto the man, Stretch forth thy hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored whole as the other. 11. And they were filled with madness, and communed one with another what they might do to Jesus. Is healing on a Sabbath is sin or unlawful? The initiator of the Sabbath is Jesus himself, and he knew how to be obedient to his law, even one understands it or not. The book of 2 Peter, chapter 2 and verse 12. But these, as natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed, speak evil of the things that they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. 13. And shall receive the reward of unrighteousness, as they that count it pleasure to riot in the daytime. Spots there and blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you. 14. Having eyes full of adultery, and that cannot cease from sin, beguiling unstable souls, and heart they have exercised with covetous practices, curse children. 15. Which have forsaken the right way, and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam the son of Bozor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. 16. But was rebuked for his iniquity, the dumb ass speaking with man's voice forbade the madness of the prophet. 17. These are wells without water, clouds that are carried with a tempest, to whom the mist of darkness is reserved forever. Saul was afflicted with the spirit of madness, and after he became Paul he made a confession. The book of Acts chapter 26 and from verse 9. I verily thought with myself, that I ought to do many things contrary to the name of Jesus of Nazareth. 10. Which thing I also did in Jerusalem, and many of the saints did I shut up in prison, having received authority from the chief priests, and when they were put to death, I gave my voice against them. 11. And I punished them oft in every synagogue, and compelled them to blaspheme, and being exceedingly mad against them, I persecuted them even unto strange cities. Example 5. Saul becoming Paul. Jesus himself had to intervene. The Book of Acts, chapter 9, and from verse 1. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest. 2. And desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. 3. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. 4. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? 5. And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus whom thou persecutest, it is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. 6. And he trembling and astonished said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. 7. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. 8. And Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand, and brought him into Damascus. This is a key passage that teaches us how we should handle the spirit of madness in present times. We born-again Christians have Jesus in us. When we identify the spirit at work, we need to break this bondage out of our leaders and governing bodies by simply asking Jesus to intervene. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, we need to break this bondage. When you see your leaders go crazy, saying one thing and doing one thing, greed for unlawful wealth, thinking and seeing them as gods, like in North Korea, when you see their decisions always go against the well-being of the people of a country, and when you find out that they are liars, it is time we go on our knees and ask Jesus to intervene. Do not wait until a whole country is gripped by this spirit. When a leader is afflicted, his close confidants will get afflicted. When a group of them are afflicted, the next to them will also get afflicted. Also, the people who are into corruption will get afflicted and their families will get afflicted. They start to love the lie and not the truth, as they are also getting benefited by these deeds of unlawfulness. To achieve their carnal desires, they will kill, they will rob, they will lie, they will twist the law of the country, they will have corrupt practices, they will consult spirits to know their future existence, and more than anything else, they will think they are doing the right thing and will boast about them as they do not have wisdom. Today, what we should do? Ask Jesus to intervene. Priority of our prayer should be aimed at breaking the bondage of this spirit of madness from our families, governing bodies, and leaders. I am sure if Jesus intervenes, this spirit will be broken and peace will come upon our lands. May God bless you all.
Thank you for watching, reading and listening to our stories. Encourage us more to bring super stories. Subscribe to our channel and push the bell icon so you may know when we upload our next story instantly.